And it's really kind of reckless to report that someone is a suspect when they could very well be a victim.
It is a dangerous and reckless thing to broadcast to the world that someone is a suspect when they could very well be a victim. The photos were there for anyone to see. Hikes, family activities, a couple living their life out in the open on a public Facebook page. Unremarkable moments of joy preserved in the digital amber of social media. Then the investigators arrived. They spent 2.5 hours inside the home. They inspected the septic tank. They carried out evidence in brown paper bags. And at some point after that thorough, exhaustive search, Annie Guthrie's photos of her husband Tomaso vanished from the internet. Not all of them. One single photo remained. But the rest? Gone. Did she delete them the very same night the police left? And why is no one asking the right questions about what it actually means to erase your digital footprint when the whole world is watching? Nancy Guthrie vanished from her home in Tucson, Arizona, in the early morning hours of February 1st, 2026. She was 84 years old. The evening before, on January 31st, she shared a quiet dinner with her daughter, Annie, and her son-in-law, Tomaso, at their home. Tomaso dropped her off safely later that night. By the next morning, Nancy was gone. Her family reported her missing when she failed to appear for Sunday church services, an absence they described as entirely out of character. Authorities quickly concluded this was no ordinary disappearance. She had been taken by force. Evidence recovered at her residence, including blood found at the scene, painted a grim picture. Doorbell camera footage captured a masked individual lurking near her home. The Pima County sheriff made it clear Nancy Guthrie had been abducted. Almost immediately, the case exploded into the national consciousness. But this was not a typical missing persons investigation. Nancy Guthrie's other daughter was Savannah Guthrie, the co-host of NBC's Today Show and one of the most recognized faces in American morning television. That connection to a national celebrity meant the story possessed an instant, massive reach. It dominated every major news network. It was a front page of every major newspaper. It trended on social media within hours. Missing person bulletins circulated from coast to coast. Because of Savannah's massive platform, this case attracted a level of intense, suffocating national attention that most missing person cases never receive. And that attention changed the trajectory of the investigation and the lives of Annie and Tomaso forever. In a standard missing persons case, the immediate family is afforded some measure of privacy. The investigation proceeds quietly. The family cooperates with detectives behind closed doors, remaining largely out of the spotlight. But this was not a standard case. Because of the celebrity tie, every single person connected to Nancy Guthrie became a public figure by association. Every family member at that January 31st dinner, every person whose name appeared in early police reports, was thrust onto a global stage. Annie Guthrie became highly visible, not by choice, but because the story was simply too massive. The connections were too prominent for anyone, even peripheral to the case, to remain in the shadows. And when you are involuntarily dragged into a national story, every fragment of your public life becomes raw material for public consumption. Annie had not prepared for this. She could never have anticipated that her Facebook page, a simple digital scrapbook built over years of sharing memories with friends, would become a national archive for amateur sleuths. She had not prepared for her husband's face to be analyzed by thousands of strangers desperately searching for evidence of a crime he had not committed. She did not choose to be a character in this true crime thriller. She was drafted into it by circumstance. The true crime community does not spontaneously generate when a case goes national. It is an existing, organized ecosystem. It is filled with databases, forums, and thousands of members who dedicate their free time to dissecting missing person cases. They are not sworn law enforcement officers. They are not bound by ethical standards, chains of custody, or the presumption of innocence. They are people armed with high-speed internet connections, absolute conviction, and a deeply held, though sometimes highly destructive, belief that they can outsmart the professionals. They archive social media posts before they can be deleted. They scrutinize photographs frame by frame. They build elaborate conspiracy theories, identifying suspicious details in the most mundane images through the psychological phenomenon of pattern seeking. where the human brain forces meaning onto random noise. A photo of a man smiling on a hiking trail suddenly becomes evidence of psychopathic indifference. A family portrait becomes a suspect profile. The community descended on Annie's page. They captured everything, and they turned her family's memories into a digital witch hunt. 2 days after Nancy was reported missing, the online speculation bled into mainstream media. Former television news anchor Ashley Banfield, who had recently launched a true crime podcast called Drop Dead Serious, aired a report that would act as a match in a powder keg. She stated, "My law enforcement source tells me that Nancy Guthrie's son-in-law, married to Annie Guthrie, Savannah's sister, is maybe a prime suspect in this case. At the very least." Banfield stated it flatly at first. Tomaso Coyote was the prime suspect. She then quickly walked it back, adding the caveat, maybe. But the headlines or claim generated did not carry the qualification. The nuance was lost. The accusation remained. The episode was titled, "Stunning New Twist. Savannah's sister's car seized, cameras smashed." These were Banfield's words, not an official press release. She cited a very connected, highly regarded, unnamed source. The impact was catastrophic and immediate. Tomaso Coyote, a biology teacher, a poet, a bass player in a local Tucson rock band, and a man who had fully cooperated with every single request made by investigators, was now publicly branded a prime suspect in the disappearance of his 84-year-old mother-in-law. Once the word suspect is attached to your name in a national case, it is a tattoo you cannot wash off. It dominates your search results. It infects every social media discussion. It poisons the minds of anyone who hears the accusation, but misses the eventual retraction. The response from actual law enforcement was swift and furious. On February 5th, Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos stepped to the podium and called the podcast report exactly what it was: reckless. He stated, "It's really kind of reckless to report that someone is a suspect when they could very well be a victim. We don't have anybody here listed as a suspect. Be careful of what it is we put out there. You could actually be doing some damage to the case, but you can do some damage to that individual, too." Social media is kind of an ugly world sometimes. The sheriff explicitly denied having a suspect or a person of interest, but the bell had been rung. No press conference could fully undo the damage that had already metastasized across the internet. Amidst this media firestorm, investigators executed a comprehensive search of Annie and Tomaso's Tucson home, located just miles from Nancy's residence. It is vital to understand the nature of this search. It was entirely consensual. Annie and Tomaso did not demand a warrant. They did not invoke their constitutional right to refuse entry. They opened their doors. They stepped aside. For 2.5 hours, investigators combed through property. They collected evidence in brown paper bags. They even inspected the home's septic tank, a highly specific, deeply intrusive procedure conducted only when investigators are pursuing a precise theory about concealed evidence. They consented to all of it. These are not the actions of a couple with something to hide. These are the actions of a family desperate for answers, fully aware that obstructing the police serves no one. And yet, it was sometime around this thorough, invasive search that Annie Guthrie's Facebook photos of her husband were scrubbed from public view. The central mystery the internet fixated on wasn't just if Annie deleted the photos, but why. If she deleted them the night of the search, it looks reactive, an emotional response to the trauma of having your home torn apart by evidence technicians. If it happened later, it looks like a deliberate strategy. But the timing matters far less than the motivation. When you strip away the internet's conspiracy theories, there are 3 highly logical, fully documented reasons for her actions. None of them involve guilt. First, privacy protection. The harassment Annie and Tomaso faced did not stay on Reddit. It showed up on their lawn. True crime creators and independent live streamers descended on their Tucson neighborhood, filming the house and confronting neighbors. By day 78 of the investigation, the harassment was so severe the couple posted a legal, no trespassing sign citing specific Arizona statutes. The Pima County Sheriff's Department had to attend local homeowners association meetings and increase police patrols just to keep the internet vigilantes at bay. When YouTubers are treating your trauma like a tourist attraction, removing your photos isn't suspicious. It is a digital barricade. It is a family trying to stop the endless flow of fresh ammunition to people actively hunting them. Second, legal protection. On May 14, 2026, retired FBI Special Agent Jennifer Coffindaffer, a veteran with nearly 3 decades of federal law enforcement experience, offered a chillingly clear analysis of the couple's silence. Why were they laying low? Her answer was simple: defamation suits. When a podcaster publicly names an innocent man a prime suspect, causing severe, measurable harm to his life and career, defamation is a real legal remedy. Megyn Kelly confirmed on SiriusXM that Savannah Guthrie was livid about the report, and rumors of lawsuits swirled early on. If you are preparing to sue for defamation, your lawyers will tell you to do 2 things: document the damage meticulously and immediately reduce your public footprint. Every new photo you post is just another piece of media for your attackers to twist. Annie didn't hide the photos because she was guilty. She locked them down to star the smear campaign of Oxygen, a textbook legal maneuver. Third, investigative guidance. It is standard operating procedure for detectives to instruct the families of missing persons to limit their social media activity. Public posts can alert suspects, complicate the investigation, and generate false leads. Law enforcement likely told them to go dark. They simply followed orders. If there was any lingering doubt, it should have been permanently erased on February 16th, 2026. Sheriff Chris Nanos didn't just give an update. He issued a definitive, forceful defense of the family. He declared, "Not one single person in the family is a suspect. The Guthries have done nothing but been 100% cooperative with us. We've taken their phones and their computers and their homes and their cars. Look, they are victims. They are not suspects. I am telling everyone affected today, you guys need to knock it off. Quit." He later texted NBC News, saying it was his duty as a cop to stand up and be that voice for our victims. He refused to sit in silence while the innocent were attacked. Tomaso submitted to a polygraph examination. He passed. The couple's car was seized, towed, examined forensically, and cleared. Every single law enforcement agency working this case has formally cleared Annie and Tomaso. When you view the deletion of few Facebook photos against the backdrop of an FBI agent's defense, a sheriff's furious public exoneration, a past polygraph, and relentless, terrifying real-world harassment, the truth becomes obvious. Leaving one photo up was a statement. My husband exists. We are human. Taking the rest down was survival. It was a family erecting a desperately needed wall between themselves and a world that had tried and convicted them in the court of public opinion, entirely without evidence. The internet chased a phantom, and in doing so, inflicted profound damage on a family that was already living through their darkest nightmare. But the investigation into Nancy Guthrie's disappearance has not stopped. The case is not cold. It is active, prioritized, and desperately needs real information, not internet speculation. Thank you for staying with us through the facts, the evidence, and the context that actually matters. If you care about the truth and about protecting the innocent from reckless accusations, subscribe to the channel, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and consider joining our YouTube membership to help us keep investigating the stories that matter. We will not stop looking for Nancy.